Show. Right now, very happy to have Frank Figliuzzi back on, a former FBI assistant director, retired NBC News and MSNBC national security analyst, also author of the book, The FBI Way, Inside the Bureau's Code of Excellence. Frank, thanks so much for being on. We're recording this early Frank's time, so I really appreciate you giving us time before the TV hits today. So Frank, let's start with what happened late last night. It was sort of late last night. For us, Judge Cannon, the Trump-appointed judge, refused to lift the stay on the Department of Justice just doing a criminal investigation into specifically the classified documents they were able to seize by way of their August 8th court-approved search warrant. What's your reaction to her refusal to allow the investigation to go forward?
Yeah, boy, I have to tell you, when I read through this last night, and the first thought that popped into my mind is, please God, don't let me go on Dean's show or television and be asked to explain this decision, which is what my job typically is, right? I can't explain it. I'm not over dramatic when I wish I had not read this before bed, which is what I did, because then I couldn't sleep well. I actually, in my mind, I kept going over it paragraph by paragraph, trying to make sense out of it, Dean, and I can't. And my conclusion is, and I don't say this lightly, but now we've got a couple of opinions from this judge. This is not a dumb woman. This is a woman who is law review, Michigan. This is a serious, bright woman. So it's not that she is ill qualified for the bench. Rather, this appears to be a deliberate decision to ignore established law and reasoning. I'm not kidding you. And so while I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, we have a corrupt federal judge, I am saying this. I feel quite comfortable saying this. This appears to be a judge that decided to punt her authorities, her abilities to a special master, because I think, Frank Figliuzzi's opinion, she can't handle and does not want the political repercussions on her if she were to actually rule in a legal sense. If she were to say, to grant DOJ's motion for a partial stay, she would take so much grief from the party she belongs to, from the man who appointed her to the bench, that she was unwilling to do it, and therefore has punted her complete authority as a judge to a retired judge, and basically said, please God, I don't want to do these decisions. And so, I mean, that's the overall umbrella. You and I can get into, however you want to get into and try to parse this out. What's wrong with it?
Well, look, parsing it out, to me, it's a great academic discussion, but in reality, the Department of Justice is precluded as of now, temporarily, to continue investigation. And so let me ask you, as a former FBI...
Well, hold on. So hold on. So this, I'm worked up on this. I'm still worked up on it from last night.
Please share.
So you just said something that actually tried to make sense, right? You said, okay, the DOJ is precluded from continuing the criminal investigation. Guess what? Yeah, you're right that that's how DOJ reads this, but that's not what she said yesterday. What she said was lunacy. She said, in her opinion, see, I don't buy you guys at DOJ saying you've got to stop the criminal case. I think you can go forward and just not use the 100 documents seized in the warrant. I think you can split the baby and pretend that those documents don't exist and interview all the people you want, but just don't ask them about the content of any documents. And don't, right? So, Dean, it's bullshit. So what? She thinks they can go forward with the criminal case.
Have you ever, look, in all your years as an FBI agent, did you ever have a federal judge stop an investigation by the FBI into a potential target or suspect?
That's a great question. The answer is no. That's how bizarre this is. Have I seen special masters? Have I led filter teams in sensitive cases? You bet. But it all had to tie to something with precedent. So attorney-client privilege decisions, right? The DOJ handed her an opportunity to correct herself and go, okay, yeah, I might have screwed up. Yeah, I'm going to do the special master, but only to look at attorney-client privileged materials. Yes. But she didn't. She doubled down, Dean, and doubled down on what? The concept of possessory interest. Well, let's look at that. What does that mean? Well, I don't know if, Trump might have possessory interest in your documents, federal government, your documents. So what is this? and the executive privilege thing. Well, I don't know, he's the president. So what is the special master going to do? I'm going to look at these 100 documents. I'm going to say, God, they look like they're government documents to me. Because don't get caught up in this distraction about classified, right?
Right.
No. The three statutes cited in the search warrant, espionage, unlawful retention, obstruction, they don't care if they're classified or not. So that's a distraction. So that special master is going to sit there and go, boy, these look like government documents. And he's going to call in the government. Are these your documents? Yes. Can you prove it? Yes. Here are letters from the CIA, the FBI, the NSA saying, yep, God, those are our documents, right? Okay. What say you, legal team from Trump? Well, we don't know. Oh, okay. Anybody else want to say anything? Well, he might have declassified them. Nope, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, government documents, they're yours again.
And so I'm talking about Frank Figliuzzi. So Frank, you're getting at really the heart of the issue, which is the idea of these documents, regardless classified or not, are our property. The government, we the people's property. We get that. A lot of legal pundits were slamming her for seemingly entertaining the idea that documents that they had that were marked classified were somehow not classified, like the idea that they might not be classified. And I found that really interesting because the DOJ in their last filing said, well, Trump's lawyers talk about classification and how they declassify, but never did they add a line saying, hey, our client declassified them. So we all know it's a charade. And for her to entertain that, to me, seemed like political. It seems like you talk about punting. It seems like more like an ambitious young 41-year-old judge who wants to move up the ladder by doing something that seems to help Donald Trump, because he could be president in 2025, or Ron DeSantis or another Republican, and goes, hey, that Judge Cannon did the right thing for us. So we're going to elevate her to the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. I think that's exactly where she's going. And boy, is it quite a gamble, because her own peers on the 11th Circuit, if DOJ decides to appeal this, which is quite a strategic decision they have to make, then she could get slammed. I mean, she could go down in infamy as the most stupid judge ever, when her own circuit court goes, you don't know what the hell you're doing. But you're right. I think she's putting all of her hopes in the possibility of someday a Trump-like person getting back in and elevating her to appeals or Supreme Court. That's the deal. But DOJ's got quite the decision to make.
And look, taking a step back in the big picture, how concerning is it, though, that everywhere, CNN, MSNBC, on Twitter, former prosecutors, attacking her as being a partisan hack? And I have a bigger picture fear that we're in a situation where if we lose confidence in our judiciary, we lose confidence in the entire Constitution and our way of government. Yep. And I'm concerned that the people on the right, the real fascist ones that are truly fascist, they don't want checks and balances. So we're playing into their ultimate game, which is, hey, it's all corrupt anyway, so who cares? I'm concerned about that in the bigger picture, that we're going to lose confidence in our judiciary, and it will in turn lose confidence in our Constitution.
You have addressed the much larger issue here. We're all focused on this, laser-like on this court decision. You are right. We have now had 5 years or more of Donald Trump cutting. It's death by 1,000 cuts to the institutions of our government, the FBI, the DOJ, the intelligence community, the Centers for Disease Control, for God's sakes. And that's the big issue. Is the goal seems to be that government needs to be scrapped. We need to start over again. And of course, you start over again by populating government with people who think crazy things that are not democratic in nature. That's what's going on here. And yes, the American people are suffering and democracy is suffering. We don't have credibility. And look, we are now very close to November midterms. And again, the credibility issue, essential to believing that the vote was counted properly, that, right? And I guarantee you the strategy will be in November midterms. We don't need to win. We just need to make you think the vote was bad.
It's such a existential gamble with our democratic republic that some on the right, not all, but enough to be concerning. So, Frank, let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to get to your article for MSNBC about the Oath Keepers, but I want to touch on it's making all the headlines. Ron DeSantis flying human beings from Texas. A flight started in Texas and then somehow stopped for a minute in Florida and went on the way to Martha Vineyard. NPR's reported that they spoke to people directly who were on that plane and they were told they were going to Boston and they were going to get expedited work permits. Instead, they were taken to Mar-a-Lago. There is no expedited work permits. At what point does it become a crime, like human trafficking, or is there some other crime that could be implicated here?
Yeah, great question. Again, we have a couple of governors who seem to be thumbing their nose and subverting federal law and just inviting some kind of prosecution. We learned late last night as I was up, my head exploding, reading Judge Cannon's opinion. I saw a late night report that said the White House will be today considering litigation options against those two governors. I don't know what that means, but I can tell you from my criminal perspective that this is a violation of federal law. Now, people keep throwing around the term human trafficking. Be careful with that. I don't think it violates the human trafficking statute, but I absolutely think that it violates a law that says you can't transport across state lines undocumented migrants, period. End of discussion. So whatever the hell was done with DeSantis, and by the way, just so people understand, these Venezuelans, they weren't in Florida. People might go, oh yeah, Florida's got an immigration problem. No, they didn't swim over. They were in Texas, and DeSantis sent a Florida plane just because he wants in on the stunt, right? He wants to say, yeah, I hate brown people as much as everybody else does, right? I'm in on this. And he sends the plane. And interestingly, it seems the plane left from Lakeland, left from an Air Force base in Texas. By the way, last time I looked, that's a United States federal property. I don't know what's going on there and how that happened, or whether there's a private side or National Guard side to that Air Force base. So yeah, I do think there's a violation of law. It's not the trafficking law, but it's the law that says you can't transport undocumented migrants across state lines. Look, once somebody comes in undocumented, they've now entered the federal umbrella, right? They are kind of in the care and custody of the federal government. It's a federal thing. I feel for the border states. I do. I live in a border state. I've lived in another border state before this. I get the burden, but the political stunt with human beings turns out probably a violation of law.
Is there a criminal penalty with that law? Do you know offhand?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But and I think DOJ is going to have to look at it. But I'll also predict this. I think those two governors are just going to thumb their nose and go, yeah, fine, charge me. Bring it on, charge me, because it empowers them as they're entering an election.
Wow. Huh? So let's talk about, you wrote for MSNBC about oath keepers in the military, in the police, running for office, and the concern about that. I think the ADL went through different lists and they found about 370 people in law enforcement, including police chiefs and sheriffs, 100 more in members of the military and such. First of all, could you remind people what the oath keepers are about in case they don't know? And then we can talk about your concerns here.
Yeah, oath keepers, by the way, we have multiple oath keepers charged with seditious conspiracy. I believe the second highest charge you can ever be charged with, most grave charge by the federal government after treason. So that's who they are. That's for their role in January 6th in organizing, coordinating, planning. They are a group that started, let's call it for what it is. They started immediately after Obama won election as our first Black president. They decided, okay, time for us to, the country's falling apart. There's a Black man coming, and we've got to start a group that says military and cops are going to uphold their oath to the Constitution now all of a sudden. And so all of these guys, mostly guys who are kind of like, yeah, I took an oath and I got nothing to do because I left the military service or I'm retired and I want to belong to a group. It's kind of like a street gang. I'll sign up for this. And they became an extremist group that wanted to actually revolt. One of their top people actually said, we're about a revolution. Okay, that's who they are, charged with seditious conspiracy. Now, a leak occurred where their membership lists fell into the hands of eventually the media and the Anti-Defamation League, who did a great job of scouring the membership list. And lo and behold, as you said, hundreds of cops, including active cops and office holders and people running for office, including chiefs of police and sheriffs. And then the Associated Press took that and confronted and went out and said to those chiefs and sheriffs, all of those chiefs and sheriffs, hey, what say you about your membership in Oath Keepers? So we can wring our hands, and what I said in my column for MSNBC Daily, I'm all about looking for bright spots, Dean, because otherwise, we're all depressed. So we can wring our hands and go, my God, there's chiefs and sheriffs on this list, or we can try to look for a bright spot. Here's the little glimmer of hope I found in this reporting. When they approach the chiefs and sheriffs, and remember, these are people who need to hold office. Sheriffs are elected, right? Mm-hmm. These are important people in our society. They, to a person, those who responded said, basically, no, not anymore. I don't. Those people are too extreme for me. I'm out. I never paid my dues. I don't pay anymore. I don't know. My brother-in-law signed me up, right? So that's important. Why is that important? They didn't double down. They didn't say, by God, I believe in the Oath Keepers. I'm with them. Right. No, they said they've been charged with seditious conspiracy. I'm out. That is good news, because maybe we're doing something right. Maybe the shaming of these groups, maybe Biden calling these people anti-democratic, semi-fascist, maybe it's having an impact. And by the way, I know a lot of people said it to me after the column. Well, that's fake. You know, they're pretending, they're forced, they're pressured. Yes, I don't care. It's good news. If chiefs and sheriffs go, yeah, I'm out of that. I'm out. Too extreme for me.
And I'm chatting with Frank Figliuzzi from MSNBC, NBC. That's a good kind of pressure. You mentioned earlier, Judge Cannon might not want to get the backlash politically. And you wonder, and it brings me to Trump here, before we wrap up the last couple of questions, with Trump, is he established a norm in our society that if you go against him, you're going to suffer a backlash, and it can be more than criticism of the media. It could be threats. And what I speak to specifically is you had Trump on yesterday, and Trump said if he's indicted, I don't think the people of the United States would stand for it. I'm reading verbatim so everyone gets this as a real quote. And he said, if a thing like that happened, I have no prohibition against running. But here's the scary part. He goes, I think you'd have problems in this country, the likes of which perhaps you've never seen before. So apparently it would be worse than the Civil War if we indicted Trump, worse than 9/11 than if we indicted Donald Trump. And while that might be over the top in how I'm analyzing it, he clearly said that the likes of which you've never seen before. And in the past at rallies, he called for his supporters to go in the streets if the prosecutors do anything wrong. As a former FBI agent, when you hear this language from Donald Trump, who has a devout following, what goes off in your head in terms of red flags?
Yeah, this is the ultimate threat level and risk picture. That I'm using intelligence terms, threat level, risk picture. This is just elevated. And look, it's not just him. Lindsey Graham said if Trump's indicted, there will be riots in the street. Right? This is a strategy. This is not haphazard. These guys are deliberately applying pressure and setting expectations. They know that the only hope they have is violence and is pressure, and making DOJ look like the bad guys if they actually follow the law. So I have to tell you, as a former Intel national security guy, the threat level and risk picture is extremely high. And we got a glimpse of it with the search warrant execution at Mar-a-Lago. We had a guy walk into FBI Cincinnati with an AR-15 slung over his shoulder. He ended up dead later that day, right? That's a glimpse of what could happen if actually Donald Trump is handcuffed.
And as someone who used to be in DOJ, does this impact in any way the threat of pursuing a potential criminal for their actions, that you fear a backlash in terms of actual violence against you?
I think the only impact it has, Dean, is that we're seeing it. It's the extremely methodical, comprehensive approach to getting this right. They understand the gravity of this decision, whatever they come up with, on all fronts, that Trump's being investigated, and they're going to get it right. But to the issue of, hey, does this dissuade or deter DOJ from doing what they do for a living? Absolutely not. Will the FBI and Homeland Security and every police department in this country have to go on high alert if he's indicted? You bet. But that's what we do for a living. We protect democracy.
It's remarkable. Last thing, have you ever heard of an elected official in our country suggesting violence if he's criminally charged before? Because maybe my memory is not as good. Because I don't remember during the investigation of Hillary Clinton ever saying, well, if I'm charged, my Hillary supporters are going to not stand for you. It's the worst thing ever. I don't think I've ever heard this again. And it's another first.
Yeah, I have not. And look, it's a world of firsts with this former guy, right? And it was during his tenure. Everything is unprecedented. But he also knows the legal line, Dean. He's learned the line. He didn't say there will be violence, right? Although, by the way, Graham said, there will be riots in the street, but they both know the line. The line is not I'm inciting, I'm encouraging, but rather I'm just doing some predictive analysis. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. And it's the kind of the mob boss mentality. My people know what to do. If I give them the head nod, they're going to do it.
I'm half Sicilian. So my mom's threats would be, God forbid something happens. God forbid I get indicted and your capital gets destroyed. I'm just saying, God, I'm not saying this.
I know, Dean, I know from which you speak.
So this is the Sicilian mindset. So when I hear it, I know exactly what's going on here. And I'm glad DOJ will not be dissuaded. Frank, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, my friend.
Anytime. You too. Take care.